What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another jam-packed edition of the Two Buck Sports Podcast. I am your co-host, Rusty Buckets, coming to you once again from Martin, Tennessee, on a night where a podcast is much needed. And as my co-host said, we got a taut hour to get this thing in. So welcome to the podcast, sir. Drew Gann, thanks for being here tonight, buddy.
What is up, Buckets? I'm still just tickled to death that you're in Central Time Zone with me now, God's time zone.
Yes, sir.
It has, Christmas is in 4 days. We're recording this the night of December the 21st in the year of our Lord 2023. 4 days from Christmas, and I'm telling you, this week has dragged.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
I know you've got new job stuff. I'm sure you're swamped and you feel like you're drinking from a water hose. It may feel like your days fly by just because there's not enough time to get anything done. But for me, it has dragged this week because you're looking down the barrel of a 4-day weekend, and you just can't get here quick enough.
Yeah, I got a 4-day weekend coming up. And for me, it's dragging because I ain't got no patience. I'm the new PT. I'm training. So I'm a full-time therapist right now before I start taking over some other duties, as I grow within the company. But right now, man, I'm just trying to get people to show up. Yesterday, I had 4 new evals yesterday afternoon between 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the 3 o'clock showed up. Everybody else canceled because of sickness or whatever. It's that time of the year in the therapy world where everybody cancels, but that makes for some long days. Today was better. I was a little bit busier and then went to lunch with some coworkers at Yamato here in Martin.
You have one of those there too?
Yeah, we do. And we all, about 2 o'clock, all of us hit that wall from all that rice that we ate. But it was good. But the days are just dragging on, like you said, especially with a 4-day weekend coming up. Got some big, exciting plans, and it just doesn't feel like it's ever going to get here.
Yeah, I'm with you. You have no patience in 2 ways.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And so, yeah, I'm excited. I love Christmas. It's been well documented on this podcast how I love Christmas. I love everything that goes around. I like buying gifts for my kids. I like hanging the lights on the tree, wrapping presents, the whole 9 yards, the Christmas tree cakes. I'm just a big fan of Christmas. However, when you get to this time of Christmas season, my bank account starts screaming, please be over, you know? And so, you're broke and you're just now starting the holidays. It's like, okay, well, maybe it's almost, you have Christmas tax returns come in, maybe grandma's cash coming in will float me to the next paycheck,
Yeah.
And so, it is truly the most wonderful time of the year. If you give me the allowance to be a little corny here, I do love it. I love the way my house looks. I love the way the tree looks and all the presents under the tree. But I am ready. It's just like a long vacation. You go in the summertime for 7 days to the beach or whatever, and about day 4 or 5, you're just like, this has been a lot of fun. But home doesn't sound too bad. Mm-hmm. Normalcy does not sound too bad. That's the portion of Christmas we're at now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm just glad it's finally here. It's been a long time coming. Again, like you said, I'm staring down the barrel of a 4-day weekend, looking forward to getting away for a few days. I can watch one of my favorite movies without judgment. I've already watched Christmas Vacation once, and we'll be watching it again this weekend. It sums up the holiday season so well for me, and I laugh. It's one of those things I'm always going to belly laugh at it. I can't not watch it and not laugh.
Always
at the same lines that you and I quote throughout the year. It's still funny. It's still great.
I didn't tell you this. I don't think I told you this. Tuesday night, maybe I did. Packed up the family and went to Oxford for the Ole Miss basketball game.
No, you didn't.
So my dad, who is on record saying I just don't like basketball, has found his love for basketball amongst the Ole Miss Rebels' undefeated start to the regular season here in 2023. It's crazy. It just goes to prove that we all just cheer for laundry. It doesn't matter. I say the same thing for the Olympics. You put the stars and bars on something, I'm going to cheer for it. Same way with Ole Miss. And my dad has learned that hard lesson that you just don't speak in absolutes. You don't say, I don't like basketball until you have to put your money where your mouth is when the Ole Miss basketball team is really good to start the year. So he wanted to go. So we bought tickets. I think they're $7 a piece. To go down and watch them play Troy Tuesday night in Oxford. And so we took the family down there, and I was really torn. Almost, and it's a topic we're going to get to in a minute. I almost said no because at 6:30 Tuesday night, John Morant made his return, and so we're getting to it. We're getting to it. But for the sake of family time and something we don't do very often, I agreed to go, and it was an early tip. It was a 6 o'clock tip. But what really pushed me over the edge is I got online, and it was Christmas vacation night at the Pavilion in Oxford, Mississippi for the Ole Miss game. So in commercial breaks and stuff, they were playing clips from Christmas Vacation. We didn't get there early enough, but like the first 500 fans got Christmas Vacation Ole Miss Christmas ornaments.
Oh my gosh!
And so we weren't able to get them, but and they weren't. I mean, it wasn't. Something I was dying. I saw them, and they were like, it was just like the little blue ball with a station wagon with a tree on top of it, you know.
Oh yeah.
And so, it was a big time, but it really put me in the season again. I only watch Christmas Vacation one time a year, and it's at my mom's house on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking forward to it. I have not broke the seal in 2023 yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, coming. I mean, you still laugh at the same lines. Got a great kick out of it, and it just really jump-started that Christmas fever for me, and I'm glad that it's here and glad that we're getting that downtime. Any Christmas memories that come to mind? I know this is putting you on the spot, but any like funny Christmas memories that come to mind?
Oh, yeah. There was this one, and it comes up every single family function. And I'm gonna keep it more PG rated for this podcast. But so my grandpa, my Papa Joe, you knew him. Everybody knew him. He was the only grandfather I had. My other one died when I was 5 years old. And so my Papa Joe, he was my next door neighbor. And he was the old style man. They don't make him like this anymore. He was the silent type. When he spoke, everybody shut up. He always commanded a room. He was a very small fellow, but he would command a room. I've talked about Saturday morning breakfast on this podcast several times. We used to have it every single Saturday morning, and it's a chaos. Grandkids, great-grandkids, my Aunt Sandy, just everybody shooting their mouth off at the same time around the table. And that man would just slowly raise his hand in the air like this right here, and everybody would shut up. And you knew that it was time to pray or he had something to say. Yeah. Well, Christmas time came around, and we do my grandma's Christmas on the 23rd of every year. And this was probably the year before he died, maybe 2 years before he died. And he was not getting around good at all. He had some fluid on the brains. It resulted in him shuffling his feet. He fell a lot. And he was becoming of age to where, like, my grandpa lived a long life and he just died of old age. That's what you will dream to be, but that's what was taking place at this time. It was a gradual descent based on nothing else other than you're just getting old. And so he was just getting old on us, and he was always pretty feisty. He was always witty and everything, but he would, grow up, you hear stories about how he'd whip his kids and spank his kids, but you didn't spank his grandkids, not in front of him. And so my brother-in-law, Cade, they had the first, the second great-grandkid. And my niece, Lila, she's 9 now, about to be 10, makes me feel really old. But Lila was probably 2-ish, and all the grandkids were great-grandkids were kind of sitting around the middle, and they'd all gotten a present, and a lot of the presents were the same. Like, they got the same gift for the girls and the same gift for the boys.
In different colors, right?
Yeah. And
that's how we got them.
So she was playing with her gift, and my cousin's kid had grabbed Lila's gift away from Lila. An honest mistake kids make. They just all start grabbing each other's gifts. And Lila just throws an absolute fit. And so Cade, my brother-in-law, walks over there, and she's in the middle of the living room. My Papa Joe's in his chair. He snatches her up real quick, takes her out the front door. We all know what's about to happen. And she's about to get worn out. She's acting a fool right here in front of God and family. And she's about to get a butt whooping. No harm, no foul in our family,
Right.
Turns out that was not what he was doing. He was just eliminating the chaos from the situation. But to everybody's point of view, he had just snatched that kid up, and she was about to go get her tail tore up.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, my Papa Joe, who does not move well, does not walk well, he's in a walker, starts this. He's in his rocking chair, and he starts this, getting his momentum up. If you see me on the YouTube, you'll know. You can tell. He just, getting that momentum up, rocking, finally gets enough momentum to get him up, standing up, and he's just basically falling towards the door, just chasing after Cade. And Cade does not even realize what's going on because he closed the door behind him, and we had got to Papa Joe before he got to the door,
to Cade's benefit.
Yeah. And so Victoria, my sister, it just tears her up that Papa Joe has gotten upset at Cade over Lila. And so she goes out the other way and was like, well, Cade, just take a minute. Nobody's blaming you for spanking Lila, but it really upset Papa Joe. Well, that flew all over Cade. And so Cade comes in and is like, no one's going to tell me how to raise my kids. And Papa Joe said, you ain't spanking her in my house. And he said, well, we won't come back. And Christmas was over.
Oh, my gosh.
And so that's the story that leads up to the funny part. So a year or so, 2 years later, Papa Joe passed away. His old age caught up to him. He died peacefully in his home. Nobody was even that sad. You love it when your grandparents get to the age to where they die peacefully and you're not really sad. It's more like of a relief. I think I've even talked about it on this podcast before. So Papa Joe went to be with the Lord, and at his funeral, all of the grandsons and grandsons-in-law were the pallbearers, and we were kind of standing outside greeting people. And we look over at Cade, and Cade wasn't there when Papa Joe died, and all the grandsons were. And I just looked at Cade and I said, Cade, we never told you this. I hadn't told you this. I hadn't figured out a good way to say it yet. But Papa Joe, on his deathbed, he was kind of struggling to breathe. And with his last words, you know what he said? And Cade was like, what? He said, Papa Joe, with his last words, said, I wish I'd have whooped Cade's ass that day. Totally not true. He would never say that ever. But Cade was just like, are you serious? And so like every family function we have, it's like, Cade, you remember what Papa Joe's last words were?
That's hilarious. Yeah. Hilarious.
What about you? That was a long story, but now you have to tell a shorter one now.
Yeah, mine will be much briefer. So one of my favorite Christmas memories, I was probably in 4th or 5th grade, and I'm an early riser anyway, but on Christmas morning I was sleeping in a little bit. This was probably like 6:15, 6:30, which for me is sleeping in still to this day. Anyway, Mama comes in there and she shakes me awake and she said, Rusty, I need you to go outside before your father kills himself. And I'm like, what? All right. So I roll out of bed. She's like, get dressed and put some good shoes on. I'm like, okay. So I get dressed and I put my shoes on and I walk outside and I'm like, Mom, Dad's not here. I don't know what you're talking about. And our house, we used to live out Farmington Road next to the Roaches, friend of the podcast, excuse me, Amy Roach Smith, shout out, teacher at Alcorn Central High School, was our next door neighbor. And we had this long gravel driveway that was gravel behind the carport. We had our basketball goal out there. And I'm like, Mom, I don't see Dad. And all of a sudden, around the right side of the house, you just hear, whoa! And here comes my dad, smiling from ear to ear, screaming in a full-on power slide in a go-kart, just through the gravel, past the house. And he's going back past the other side. I look at Mom. I'm like, what is that? And she's like, it's supposed to be for you and your brother, but I can't get him out of it. And Pops was just making laps around that house. Yeah. He probably made 6 good power slide laps before he finally stopped and let me drive it.
Did I ever tell you the story about when we got go-karts for Christmas?
I don't think so.
So we all lived on the same road. Me and Kurt and David and Hunter, all my first cousins, we all lived on the same road. And so one Christmas, all of our parents got together and bought us matching go-karts.
Yeah.
And so just like you, I wake up in the morning, Mom and Dad's like, go outside, and there's a go-kart sitting there. My dad wasn't driving it laps around the house, but it was sitting there. And it was cold this Christmas morning. And so you've been to my parents' house. We built a house in a cattle pasture. There's long fence rows going down either side of the driveway where cattle graze and whatnot. And we live off the road a little piece. Well, Dad said, well, hop in, son. You want to drive it? I'm like, absolutely. And so he's like, all right, now keep your foot on the brake. I'm going to go around back, crank it up, and then you take it for a spin. All right, cool. Foot on the brake. That's the left one, right, Dad? Yeah, it's on the left. All right, both feet's on the brake. He pulls up, that thing starts jumping, like you're pressing the accelerator and the brake at the same time. Mm-hmm. And he's like, he cuts it off. He said, "You're pushing the wrong pedal." He said, "You need to push the one on the left." I said, "Dad, it's on the left." He cranks it again. This thing starts jumping. He turns it off. He's mad at this point. This kid does not know his right from his left. And so he's like, "Get out." So he's like, "I'm just going to do it then. I'm going to crank it, and then I'm going to run and jump in the driver's seat, I'll show you how to do it." He cranks that sucker up, and off she goes. Just down the driveway. And it's got the pool noodles up the side of the roll cage and whatnot. And he tries to dive in, and he's not running fast enough. So he gets hold of the steering wheel and runs over his other arm, and he just yanks the steering wheel, and it goes the other direction. Off she blows up the fence, tore all the pool noodles off the front of it, scratched it up. And he was just like, "Son, I think your accelerator was frozen into the accelerator position." I was like, "Yeah, I think so too."
Yeah.
Like, unless they're supposed to just, this isn't a self-propelled go-kart, is it? Like a push mower. No, something's wrong. And so I drove the go-kart Christmas morning to my Aunt Sandy's house for breakfast, and it's already damaged. Everybody, "What happened to yours?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Dad ran it up the fence."
So our go-kart, we'd had about a month, and I had one of my elementary school best friends, John Shoemaker, his dad's Buddy Shoemaker. He's the yoked postman that walks around downtown Corinth. You know what I'm talking about. Looks like Mr. Clean, bald, muscle dude. His son, John, and I were best friends in elementary school. And John came over and rode with me for like an hour, and I kept trying to get him to drive. I'm like, "John, you got to drive it." He's like, "Nah, man, I don't think I can." I'm like, "John, you're going to love it. You got to drive it." "No, man, I don't think I can." I finally talked him into driving his go-kart, and on his second lap, we come around that third turn there at Talladega, and he gets loose in the gravel. And I think, oh no.
Oh, here we go.
And we kind of like fishtail and kind of swerve, and it bites. And when it did, it caught and shot us straight into the post in the carport. And we had this like little bumper bar on the front, and it just caved it right in. And we came so far up that I had to grab the post, and then we sat down because we're at full speed.
Did it damage the post?
And no, the post is fine. Shout out to whoever built it. Yeah. But it just caved in that little bumper bar in the front. And John looks at me and goes, "I am never driving again." And I said, "Okay." And then he never drove it again.
You're right. You're not.
And then that go-kart lasted about 6 years, and we beat the mortal crap out of that thing until my cousin Mary, not friend of the podcast, shout out to Mary anyway, drives it up a tree at Mimi's house. Mimi lived off of Farmington Road behind the Farmington Water Department. Had a million trees in her yard. Same thing, got loose in the gravel. And I remember watching this thing. Her and Amy Roach, again, were in it, and hit that tree, and it goes straight up the tree. Like it kind of gets some clearance before coming back down on the motor, and it never ran again.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah. So that was that's our favorite Christmas stories.
And speaking of early, we've talked about Christmas long enough. No offense to Christmas out there, but Christmas came early if you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan. I've waited long enough to talk about this. One, Demetrius Jamel Morant is back playing competitive basketball. And not only that, he drops a 34-piece on in his debut on our division rivals, the New Orleans Pelicans, who had a great game. CJ McCollum couldn't freaking miss there for a while. And not only that, but then gets the game-winning bucket and runs down the hallway saying, "I got the time and I kept receipts and I'm friggin' here for it, man. Call 12. Let's go."
Yeah, I mean, we beat around the bush long enough. And so did the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies played 25 basketball games this season before Tuesday night. And I'll be honest with you, not a one of them was exciting, was fun to watch. I mean, you went 6-19 to start the season. And to get Ja back, it was so nice for people, the world, because Grizzlies fans everywhere were like, "Just get through 25 games.
That's it.
We've got Ja, and he's coming back." But it seemed like the rest of the world forgot.
Yes.
And that's what he's talking about. All those receipts, the rest of the world forgot how good this man is.
That
when you get mired,
get
mired in that kind of controversy, and it spans a whole offseason. It's one thing if this happened earlier in the season, you spend 25 games and you're back in the same season. You're going to see that with Draymond. Right now, everybody wants to talk about Draymond's antics, but he's going to come back in the same season, and it'll be about what happened this season when you're looking back.
Right.
Last year's season ended with controversy, and then, he had controversy towards the end of the season, came back, and then dug himself, made the same mistake again right after the season was over. And he went 8 months without playing basketball. And for 8 months, the only thing the media was talking about was how poor of a decision, the character flaws of Ja Morant. And you saw that people would just seem like that's the talking points on Ja. We have forgotten as a society how amazing Ja Morant is as a basketball player. You saw that bear out in those stupid, meaningless player rankings coming into the preseason.
Yes.
They were just disrespectful, and they were grading Ja based on a mistake.
Publicity.
They were letting his off the field mistake, as bad as it was, and it was bad. They were letting that affect how good of a basketball player they think he is. You know, the Grizzlies could not have had a worse start to the season. They started 6-19 in their 25 games without Ja, and everybody just wrote off the Grizzlies. Like
ESPN gave us ESPN gave us less than a 2% chance of making the playoffs with Ja coming back.
And everybody had just written them off.
Exactly.
And I know it's a whole preseason that I did not think we would be in. I thought the pieces outside of Ja were good enough to stay afloat much better than they were, and I was wrong about that. But when you were talking about Ja Morant coming back, everybody had just assumed the fact and then written the Grizzlies out of the playoff picture, out of the play-in picture, and there is a large mountain to climb. But if you saw one thing Tuesday night in a 24-point first half deficit, that Ja Morant is still that dude who you can drop him on the Detroit Pistons tomorrow, and they will compete for the playoffs in the East. I don't care how bad your supporting cast is. Ja Morant elevates everybody on his team, and he has the ability to take over and win games by himself.
And to further, prove that point, like you said, his right hand now says him, and that's who he is. Ja Morant is one of one. He is him. But what has been it's been so mind-numbingly frustrating is we have gotten some of the best basketball of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s career. He's averaging 28 points a game right now. Dez has had monster games. He's got
his best season of the career so far.
Yeah, he has 49 points in a game this year, which is the second highest in franchise history or third highest in franchise history behind Ja's 52 and Ja's 50. And he's at 49, tied with also Ja Morant. So what that tells me is we've been getting big minutes from Tripp and from Dez. We've just been missing Ja. When you're throwing out guys like we've been throwing out, and Kenny Lofton Jr. and Big Body Roddy and Zaire Williamson, who is trash.
He's bad.
He's so bad. And we've been throwing out these guys, getting these monster nights from Tripp and Dez, but we still can't win. Now that we got Ja, and then you get 28 from Jaren, you get 30 from Dez, you get 34 from Ja. We finna go on a tear.
Yeah, again, and it's the sum of all parts. You would hope when Ja's out that the sum is greater than all of its parts.
Because last year when he missed for injury, we won a ton of games because we had Stones Jones. We had guys that were stepping up.
Tyus was huge.
We don't have those guys anymore, and that's a slight on the front office. I want to talk about Taylor Jenkins in a few minutes, but that's some knocks against him and some schemes. But right now, we're talking about how much better we're finna be with Ja back in the lineup. And he is a difference maker because just watching we were on the floor last night, he creates spacing for guys like Jaren and Biyombo down in the post. And there were so many times that he would drive and kick. I know you were at the ball game. You didn't get to watch it. I watched the vast majority of it.
I did watch the second half on the drive home. Yeah.
I watched the vast majority of it. And Ja's just so good at getting to the hoop and either finishing or then finding Dez in the corner, or finding Jaren at the low block, or finding somebody else and facilitating more points. Ja he is the gas that makes our offense go. Whether he's scoring, whether or not, or he's facilitating. And my favorite part though was the post game interview when they asked him about that last play, and he was like, "Dez, you need to get the ball," and Dez was like, "F no, you get the ball."
Right? Yeah, it's just the perfect scenario. There's superstar players. There's a level. They're all-star players, really good players. The one that comes to mind for me, the two that come to mind, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. They are amazing basketball players, but they are all-star players. They are elite stat makers, but they have yet to, when they're the best player on a team, lead a team, to great heights.
Right.
Ja is a superstar player. He's a guy that you can put on any team and he will lift every player around him. His unselfish play and the way that he can distribute, as well as how he can just get to the bucket. And we've talked about this on this podcast on this season. What we missed most about Ja was when when teams made runs, he could stop them by himself.
100%.
He was get downhill the same way you saw with 9 seconds to go in the fourth quarter in a tie game. It was Ja ISO ball. They put Herb Jones on him 3 possessions in a row in the last minute of the game. Their best defender, their best one-on-one wing perimeter defender that they have, that they are proud of. They are proud of Herb Jones, and they should be.
Right.
But Ja made him look like chopped liver 3 times in a row, and that's what he provides. He provides a stability. He provides, and he is an offense in himself. He can drive, kick. He has incredible assists. He's got eyes in the back of his head. I mean, for me to go on and on about the greatness of Ja Morant, it's like I'm preaching to the choir, and it's like, of course you're going to say that. What people would say to me, of course I'm going to say that, but like, just watch it, man.
Yeah.
You cannot. It is the NBA, and people that cover the NBA did a disservice to the Memphis Grizzlies by assuming that this season was over when they went 6-19 and downplaying the importance of Ja Morant.
All you got to do is watch ESPN. I said that on purpose earlier. They gave us less than a 2% chance of making the playoffs because the very next day, Stephen A. Smith on his show said Ja Morant's going to take this team to the playoffs. Kendrick Perkins said Ja Morant's got the Grizzlies back. The tune changed so much overnight to exactly what we knew. All of us on Grizz Twitter, all of us that are in the mud with this team, we knew what was going to happen. Get through 25. There was a countdown on Twitter that Anthony Sane and different guys that were running, they would show you how many. Like, I love Anthony Sane's because it would say like 20 mo, 15 mo, faux mo. Like, you knew what was coming. And we knew what was going to happen. We knew that when Ja got back, that this was going to be a completely different ball team, that this team was going to be lethal offensively, that this team was going to be a tough out. We'll know more about it in about 3 hours after we play, or probably longer than that, maybe 4 hours. We play the Indiana Pacers tonight. They're a good basketball team. They're a great Eastern Conference team. They score at a high rate, and nothing against the Pelicans. They're a decent basketball team, but we'll know more tonight. Plus, this is Ja's first game back at the Grindhouse. He is on. Yeah. He is at 100 Beale Street tonight. Yeah. Ja is. I was just about to say, Ja is going to set a franchise record for points tonight because he's going to be feeling it. And when Ja Morant's feeling it, there is not anybody on this planet that can stop him right now. Because when he's feeling it, he's making those mid-range jumpers. He's hitting those Mike Conley floaters. He is dunking all over your 7-foot center. Ja does not miss when he is feeling it. And tonight's going to be one of those nights. I might be wrong, but I just don't think that Lauri Markkanen and these guys are going to have enough horses. Tyler Heidelberg, I don't think these guys are going to have enough horses to be able to compete with our guys tonight. I might be wrong, but I think the Grizz win in a big fashion tonight on our first game back at the FedEx Forum with Ja starting. T's going to be courtside. D-Tap is gone. Thank God. But the Grizz are going to win in big, big fashion tonight. And it's going to be on the back of Ja Morant because Ja carries his team. Again, I said we're going to get to him here in a minute. Taylor Jenkins has struggled this season.
No, I don't want to hear it. I'll get your point out, then I'll rebut. I'm sorry. I got emotional.
I like Taylor Jenkins. We've been a pro Taylor Jenkins podcast this whole time. You and I had a bitter argument one night.
We have not been a pro Taylor Jenkins podcast. I have been pro Taylor Jenkins co-host. You have been a hater at least 65% of the time.
We had a bitter argument one night at like 1 a.m. about Taylor Jenkins. So the scheming is like, I get the talent that he's had. I get that. Like, it has been subpar outside of 2 players, 3 players, maybe 4 if you count D Rose and Marcus Smart. But every single night, a team is having their season high field goal percentage against us. At some point, that stops being luck and that starts being scheming. I understand the talent hasn't been there, but you have to make adjustments. We've ran the same daggum plays every week. We ran the same daggum defense every week, and we're getting cooked week after week after week. I'm not saying that Taylor Jenkins needs to be fired. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just wanting to start the conversation that maybe Taylor Jenkins isn't the coach that we think he is.
Are you done?
I'm done.
This is the most asinine thing I've ever heard. We have just spent 30 minutes talking about the importance of John Morant and that the reason that this team is 6-19 in the first 25 games is because there's no John Morant. And now John Morant comes back and wins the game, and you want to say that now the problem is Taylor Jenkins.
I've been saying Taylor Jenkins is a problem all along.
But it's not a Taylor Jenkins problem.
He's part of the problem. If you're saying he's not a part of the problem, then we need to talk about Santa Claus.
100% saying he's not part of the problem. Because if you look on our offensive number, if you look at our offense and you watch these Grizzlies games, every single 3-point shot that the Grizzlies take is wide freaking open and nobody makes them.
And then the same thing on the other end.
Do you want Taylor Jenkins to shoot the threes? Would you rather have Taylor Jenkins shoot or Desmond Bane shoot?
I want Taylor Jenkins to set up a scheme on the other end that every single one of them is wide open. I cannot
believe that we are talking about this. We are at the high point of our career, and you're getting on this podcast and just being the biggest freaking wet blanket in the world.
No,
can we not enjoy anything?
I just said we're going to make a run. We're going to make a run to the playoffs, and it's going to be on the back of John Morant, not Taylor Jenkins.
If we make it to the playoffs, heaven forbid, when we're at our highest peak, we thought that Tuesday was the peak, and we get in the playoff. Say we go 57-0. You're going to have something to complain about Taylor Jenkins.
What this is going to show is that we're winning because of John Morant, not Taylor Jenkins. Taylor Jenkins did nothing.
Greg Popovich could come and coach that bunch of dudes without John Morant, and the record would be the exact same.
I don't know, dude. I don't know, man.
Our wings are trash outside of Desmond Bane, and our bigs are trash outside of Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't really know what you want. I don't know what you want Taylor to do.
I want him to scheme better, like get guys in position. Like guys are
out
of position.
The other team has coaches too, Rusty. Do you want?
I'm not saying the dude needs to be fired. I'm just saying
the players suck. I don't really know what you want him to do. They won't make open shots, and they give up too many open shots. It is rotation failure. That's what you
fix the rotation. Change the rotation. We're running the same daggone rotation every week.
No, I'm not talking about player rotation like lineups and minutes. I'm talking about defensive rotations. They can't get it right. And at some point, and you see Taylor Jenkins screaming and cussing every game down the sidelines, it's because they are failing.
It's because
they cannot figure out how to play defense.
Then you need to spend an entire practice just working on that, because we're obviously not, because we're not making any difference. We're not making any changes. Nothing is changing.
That Pelicans team scored 113 points in the NBA today. That is a smashing success. Okay? And so, listen, you fail to – everybody wants to pile on coaches when it's bad and give players praise when it's good. Taylor Jenkins deserves just as much praise when the team is good as John Morant and everybody else does, and John Morant deserves, and the superstars on this team deserve just as much anguish as Taylor Jenkins when the team is bad. But let me tell you this. C.J. McCollum, on 2 different occasions down the stretch in that game Tuesday night, missed a 3 worse than I've ever seen a player miss a 3 wide open in my life. If he makes both of those 3s and the Grizzlies lose, is it Taylor Jenkins' fault? He missed those. But so we cannot say ball in the air. If he makes it, Taylor's a good coach. If he misses it, Taylor's a bad coach. It's not fair. The coaches put it out there. If John misses that layup and the Grizzlies lose in overtime, is Taylor Jenkins now a bad coach because we lost? Because that's the only way this thing works when amongst fans and amongst media. Players, John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, get all the credit when they win, and no one wants to blame the players when they lose. It's always Taylor Jenkins.
Then do we need to have a conversation? Then do we need to have a conversation about the front office? Because
I think
we've missed on Laravia. We've missed on Zaire. We've missed on so many guys.
I do think that is fair. If you want to say that they swung and missed a lot. They swung and missed on Zaire. They missed on Laravia. The only thing they've hit on lately is Vince Williams, and he's been incredible. But
he's like 5'6".
But again, I'm just going to stop this conversation right in its tracks and wonder why in the world you're being so negative at the first chance we have to be happy this year. You are throwing the biggest wet blanket in the world Like, I don't even want to talk about the Grizzlies because you're just going to talk about how poorly they are coached, despite this coach being in his fifth season at the Grizzlies, and he's never missed the playoffs. In the last 2 years, we have been the 2 seed, despite having lots of games missed by all of our superstars. All of this other stuff, the last 2 years, having the 2 seed the last 2 years, despite having more games missed by starters in the NBA, is the only thing I need to hear about regarding Taylor Jenkins. Because despite John Morant being injured several times, and Jaren Jackson Jr. being injured several times, and Desmond Bane being injured several times, he has made it work every single year. I don't care about game-to-game coaching. You look at, we have a sample size here that is 5 years. Mm-hmm. There is not one thing in the 5 years that you can point to as a pattern with Taylor Jenkins. You can say, in this game, he should have done this. But as a whole, Grizzlies fans everywhere just need to accept that if Taylor Jenkins is our coach for the next 10 years, then we will have a top 5 to 7 coach in the NBA for the next 10 years.
$2 Sports Podcast fans, you're welcome. That was the point of this whole conversation, to get Drew fired up.
No, it was not.
It was. And it worked like a charm. I do this all the time, but you cue you up, man. So Taylor Jenkins has
I prove you wrong, I prove you wrong, you say, I just did that just to get you going.
Taylor Jenkins
you had a bad take, and I proved you wrong.
Taylor Jenkins has proven over the last 5 years that he's a good coach. This year has not been
without John Morant.
Not been his best year is all I was trying to say. I'm just trying to have a conversation about Taylor Jenkins.
I will say this, and if you want to put it on somebody and they made a long-term decision for a short-term problem, and it may work out swimmingly, but the problem with us starting 6-19 this year is because we don't have Tyus Jones.
Yeah.
That was a front office decision. I mean, I know for a fact Taylor Jenkins is involved in personnel, and that was Tyus Jones was going to command more money, and with Ja not being on the max, Dez being on the max, and Jaren being on a really big contract, you can't afford like having your sixth man making $15 million a year.
Sure.
But if that's the part that the Grizzlies are going to have to learn to adapt to, because now you've got to figure out how to do less with more. I mean, more with less.
Yeah.
So.
And basically what it boils down to is like it's Ja Morant, and him coming back, he's going to have some help from Jaren and Dez, but the biggest thing is getting Ja back. Ja coming back is going to be what turns the season around, not anything else. It is on the back of 12. That's what's going to turn the season around, because he's going to be the one that's going to be the catalyst of this offense. He's going to be the driving force behind this. It falls squarely on the back of 12.
So now we're happy again.
I'm just saying it falls on 12. Not everybody else. That's on 12. 12 is going to drive whether this season ends up being a success or not, and I'm a firm believer that it's going to be. I think we have a real shot at making the playoffs, at least in the play-in, because of one Ja Morant.
Right now, I just pulled this up. So right now, the Grizzlies are in 13th place in the West out of 15. Below them, tied with them, is Portland, and San Antonio's got 4 wins. The Grizzlies are 13 games back of first place. And so if that's your goal, then there you go. More attainable, though, you are 6.5 games back of Phoenix. That's the 10 seed. And the 6th seed, you are 8.5 games back. So, and you've got 56 games remaining. And so it's all in front of you. I mean, you look at this every year, and especially down the stretch, you get post All-Star game, these teams with superstars who have high usage rates get injured, and you've got long stretches where other teams start missing their star players. So you hope that down the road you hit your incline, you hit your stride as other teams, and you don't root for injuries, but it's inevitable. Mm-hmm. But that teams above you, start getting banged up or start getting in those doldrums of the season, and just, you've got your rest, and you've got, it's hard to put together 82 games of full effort. And so you've taken 25 games off. You've done the best you can for 25 games. You've stayed healthy. You've tried to keep your other guys healthy. I think they've slow played Marcus Smart. Mm-hmm. I think for sure they've slow played Luke Kennard. And so you get the Grizzlies, unlike any other team in the NBA, are getting their horses back right now, and there's no reason to think that you're not going to steadily climb. I saw Chris Vernon. He said in the 57 games, he thinks they go 37-20. That's really ballsy, but that's on par with what the Grizzlies' record has been ever since John Morant's been there. You know, they've been the 2 seed. They've been 15, 20 games above 500 to end the season every single year.
One of the biggest things that's going to change for us getting Ja back is we always defend home court really well. Over the last 2 seasons, we've had the best record in home basketball games in the NBA. This year, we're 1-11 at the FedEx Forum.
Right.
1-11. And that's one thing that Ja will fix is correcting that record.
And I just think that you're just going to be a better team anyways. I mean, you know, they finished last season, they played 42 games or 41 games at home. They went 35-6, I believe, last season. Best record, home record in Grizzlies history, the best home record in the NBA last year.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to go, say, 25-5, down the stretch at home, but you're going to win more games than you lose as long as you continue to stay healthy.
And it's not an easy road. We've got a couple tough games coming up. We've got the Pacers and the Hawks, but then we play the Pelicans, Nuggets, Clippers, Kings, and back-to-back games. That's a tough stretch.
Nobody's hotter than the Clippers right now.
Right. And James Harden is cooking right now. And so we've got some tough games coming up. But these are all games that would have been guaranteed losses a month ago. Now we're going to be competitive in every single one of these games. And if we can start getting some wins under our belt, this team's finna get dangerous.
Yeah. And it was part of my beef when you started hearing last Tuesday night, Twitter was ablaze, NBA players all over the place, commentators, those people who get paid to talk about sports but don't ever watch any sports, those guys, just so like, oh, Ja's back. And it's like, yeah, have you forgotten? Like, this is, he's
that dude.
One of the 7 greatest players in the NBA right now.
Right.
He is that guy. And so don't act shocked. And Grizzlies fans kind of have always had that chip on their shoulder, small market, don't pick on us. We rep our own, and Ja's that to another level within himself.
Yeah.
He's always had that chip on his shoulder, unrecruited, small school guy coming to the NBA, and now he can. I mean, the chip on his shoulder is never going to be bigger than it is right now to prove everybody wrong, because these people did forget about you. Yeah. And they forgot who you were. They forgot what you were capable of. And so down the stretch, I mean, all bets are off. I think this team is good. I think any team with John Morant on it is good.
It's good.
You look, Marcus Smart was doubtful for tonight, which means he was not out. He was not, it was just not he's not playing. It was like, he may play. Turns out it just came out he's not going to play tonight, but it puts him on track to play Saturday night against Atlanta. I think that's when Marcus Smart will make his return. Luke Kennard is coming around the corner. They've said, I think they've kind of slow played both of them to
get to this point.
Coincide this with Ja.
And did you see Instagram yesterday?
I was going to ask you your physical therapist's opinion about this. Brandon Clark, who after the All-Star break last season, ruptured his Achilles on the court. Yesterday, he put on his Instagram story of him with two-handed dunking, with one-step dunking. Was there anything from that YouTube video as a physical therapist, as a doctor of physical therapy, that you saw that? Because to me, it looked like he didn't have much spring. That wasn't as high as he used to jump, So, but it's rehab. He said rehab milestone. He is able to dunk now.
Right.
It'll only get better. But once you get to that point, what's next? What do you look for next?
I think that he's going to get his bounce back. The fact that he's already doing that, Drew, we're not even a year removed from one of the most catastrophic injuries that an NBA player could possibly have in an Achilles rupture. I mean, any athlete, but especially an athlete like Brandon Clark, whose whole game is bounce around the rim. He's that guy that's underneath the goal that comes up and puts those dunks back, grabs those rebounds. That's his whole game. And the fact that we're in December. He tore that, was it February?
I can't remember the date. It was post All-Star.
I think it was late February, early March.
Typically in February, so
it was late February, early March, and
it was in 23. It's within 12 months.
So we're 8 months removed. We'll say 8-9 months removed from an Achilles tear. The fact that he's dunking already is significant progress.
So what do you look for now that you have obviously are strong enough to start to jump? Is it now just continuing to gain strength until you're comfortable?
At this point, he's regained what's called neuromuscular control. He can control his ankle. He can control his lower leg enough to be able to get that fourth generation of jump. Now we got to get the strength back to be able to get that jump higher. So the fact that he's at this point, now we can start doing more plyometrics. We can start doing more game type activities to where we're running down the court. We're working on that bounce. We're doing a lot more jumping. We're doing a lot more, box jumps or squat jumps or deadlift jumps or split squats, things that'll help develop those jumping muscles. And I think his next steps are going to go through the roof. I think BC comes back and can play some meaningful minutes for us again. Now, it'll take some time to get back up to
How long do you think it takes to pre-injury to get to that level? Is it because it's kind of like ACL? They say you can come back in a year, but you're not going to be yourself for probably 18 months. It
depends on the person. And I think BC, because he's so athletic, because he's so young that also helps. I think that BC has a real shot. So they're tentatively targeting like a late January return. I don't know if you saw that.
He told Chris Haynes he wanted to be back around the All-Star break.
Yeah. So
which is in
by mid-February.
Yeah.
Any meaningful basketball for him this year is a massive win.
Right.
And
I agree with that.
Yeah. I think that if it was me, I would slow play it to the All-Star break. When we come back from the All-Star break, BC gets some minutes off the bench and start seeing what he can do in a game. At that point, he's going to know whether or not he's going to be able to be a competitive member of this team. And I think that he can, based on what we've seen so far. But it just depends on how. So we've got to the point, we've got through the hard stuff. We're back to where we're doing game type activities. Now, can we take that next step to that elite game type activity?
Always has been my concern, and it was my concern when he got injured, is that his game is solely reliant on his athletic ability.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a shooter. If he was a shooter, you could almost rush him back, and you can shoot with space. You don't have to jump much. It's not a very rigorous process.
Right.
But what he does the best is jump. I mean, to put it in simple terms, he is a great rebounder offensively and defensively, and he finishes alley-oops on offense. And so that is what makes me he's not the type of player that would be – he can't go out at 75% and be useful. I'm scared he would just be a bad basketball player at 75%. Right.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
He needs to be able to be at 100% given what he is asked to do. And so that's what makes me wonder, when can he be pre-injury Brandon Clark? Because I'm almost scared that Brandon Clark jumping at 80% of what he was is just a not good basketball player.
And you have to take the expectations for this year. He might come back at 90% of what he used to be. And again, for a role player, that's going to be a win.
Spot minutes, you can probably get to 100% in short bursts.
And where do we need help the most right now? That's in the post.
Where he is.
In the post, because we're getting cooked night in and night out. Biombo hadn't been the guy we thought he was going to be. Welcome to the Backwards Hat Club, sir. There's a glaring miss there without Steven friggin' Adams. I'm still salty about that. But
Biombo's been really good. He's just he's a boat anchor on offense.
That's it. He is.
He doesn't get the ball moving like Steven Adams did with starting the actions with on-ball screens.
Exactly. And so we need Brandon Clark's athletic ability in the post to be able to score for those putback dunks and those big time plays that we need down the stretch. Can he give us those minutes? Absolutely. Is he going to be a 30-minute a night guy this year? No. But I think a 15, 18-minute of competitive basketball off the bench, giving Tripp a rest, giving Biombo a rest, giving X a rest is where he's going to be. And if you can get 15 to 18 quality minutes, and in those 15 minutes, let's say he gets 7 points and 4 rebounds, that's a phenomenal night. That's a phenomenal night.
Honestly, it's your backup 4 right now, Santi Aldama. And Santi's got his role, but it's not as a rebounder.
He ain't got enough lead in his britches to be able to do that.
He doesn't. And R.I.P. Kenny Lofton Jr. He couldn't stay off snacks to be useful.
Can relate.
It's what I can too. I mean, let me be honest. I cannot throw stones and a guy who says, I can't. It's wrong of me to sit in here in a leather recliner, 30 to 40 pounds overweight and say that Kenny Lofton should have lost weight. But that is his job. My job is not to be an athletic specimen, So he had his opportunity. What what every young kid coming out of college wants is just the opportunity to play. And it was right in front of him. All he had to do was put in the work to be in shape, and he was not. And because of that, he fell victim to a roster crunch.
Yeah, he
and
did.
So Bismack Biyombo, we had no choice but to sign him for the rest of the season because you have no other 5 on the team. Mm-hmm. And so RIP Kenny Lofton, but it just goes to show you the lack of depth that we've got, and you could really use somebody like Brandon Clark to come back in, and it's something to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I got asked about that today by one of my coworkers here at my new clinic. He said, what about them letting Kenny Lofton Jr. go? Wasn't he like a great player? I'm like, yeah, he's a walking bucket some nights.
Offensively, there is no problem at all with Kenny Lofton.
But he is a defensive liability, man. He is
like a less athletic Zion.
He can guard, yeah, right.
I'm telling you, we watched Zion play. The Pelicans went on like a 26-3 run.
Yeah.
In the second quarter of that game last Tuesday, and it's because Zion picked up his 3rd foul. Like he was so bad.
Yeah.
And he was mad at foul. I mean, he was mad at referees, officials. Like he's mad at old Mariah Mills again. Yeah. She's back in the news. And
one of my favorite things
he's got it rough.
But speaking of getting mad, one of my favorite things that happened was at the end of the first half when Vince Williams knocked down that 3 in CJ McCollum's face, and then he barked at him, let him know about it. I'm like, yeah. Dude, let's go.
Vince Williams.
And we've been missing that, though. Like a lot of that is what Ja brings that attitude back. And we've been missing some of that attitude this year that we normally have.
It reminds me of when this was right as I was getting into the Grizzlies. The core 4 was just starting to take that climb, and everybody were getting fun. They were getting good. And Tony Allen was on the bench for Xavier Henry. And every time Tony Allen came in the game, it was like, you're making winning plays. It never showed up in the stat sheet, but you're always winning. Tony Allen is in the game. And then what happened? Xavier Henry blew out his knee. Tony Allen got minutes, and it became undeniable. The coach had no choice
the legend was
but to play Tony Allen. Vince Williams had no business playing. Nobody wanted Vince Williams to play. The coaching staff, the front office, he's a two-way guy. He had no business playing this season, but because of injuries to Smart and Kennard, and the other option being Jacob Gilliard, and John Morant suspension, like you had no choice but to play Vince Williams Jr. And now Vince Williams Jr. has played so well that the front office and the coaching staff has no choice but to play Vince Williams. Because it is a success story that is so fun to root for, because this guy, he was a late round draft pick, a flyer that they took. They've missed on every wing that they've taken after Brandon Clark. Yeah. And for that guy to hit and to be a 3-and-D guy that knows his role and does not stretch his role, just perfectly plays the role that's assigned to him. I mean, it's a guy that you root for. And
I mean, for example, the other night against the Pelicans, in 35 minutes, he was 50% from the field, 60% from beyond the arc. He had 7 rebounds and 9 points. And a guy like Vince Williams, that is a quality stat line that he is stepping in. He made some big buckets. He got some big boards. But very similar to Tony Allen, he also made a lot of plays that don't show up in the stat sheet. He didn't get any steals, but he was in a lot of passing lanes, and he was in the right place at the right time a lot. So getting Marcus Smart back is going to cut back into Vince Williams' minutes. But how the front office plays this Vince Williams role going forward, and Taylor Jenkins, will tell me a lot about them, because the guy is just like you said, Tony Allen-esque. The guy's just a winner. When he's on the floor, we're a better basketball team.
You've put the team, and we've talked about you're starting to run into money crunches when you start paying 3 guys big money.
Big money.
But right now, if you put money aside and you say, okay, I've spent a number 10 pick on Zaire Williams. I have spent a number, I think, 17 pick on Jake LaRavia. And I've spent a second round 40th, 50th pick on Vince Williams. Vince Williams is the best of those 3 players.
Right.
I mean, you've got a lot more draft capital in Zaire Williams. I mean, you traded Jonas Valanciunas for him.
Yeah.
You traded, Jonas Valanciunas in a swap, and then I think you moved up in the draft to get LaRavia. Yeah. And then, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, the one that they hit on was the least likely. and it's because he's a dog, man. Straight up.
He got that dog in him, 100%. And
take that X-ray, you'll see a dog in there.
You see that dog in him, man. And he's just got that. He's just a gamer. That's what he is, man. And watching him develop this year has been a ton of fun. They got to find some minutes for him off the bench, but like we're coming to that point.
Curious what it turns into, what his role turns into once Kennard and Smart comes back. I think he'll be that last guy off the bench. He'll get spot minutes. He'll be in defensive lineups. You can't. A defensive unit that's got him, Marcus Smart, and Jaren Jackson Jr. in it is going to be the best in the league.
100%.
And then guys like LaRavia and Zaire Williams are going to be spending time at the hustle. Like that's the only time they're going to get any run.
That's it.
It's just kind of over for them.
Because we're coming up to a point in the season. We're going to have a starting lineup of Ja, Marcus Smart, Dez, Jaren, and Biyombo. And that is going to be, especially that's another core four right there. This is going to be tough. If Marcus Smart can stay healthy and accept his role as like the fourth scorer on offense, but that defensive and that leader, and that's what I'm nervous. I was just about to say he can be that leader, but I'm nervous as whether or not he'll accept that role. I'm
curious if he doesn't. Down the stretch, we end up with a scenario kind of like he was in at Boston, where when everybody was healthy at Boston, he was the sixth man. He was running the show for the second team, and he was extremely beneficial there. Boston was at their best when Marcus Smart was not the first team point guard. They got Brogdon in there, and now it's Drew Holiday, but they got Brogdon in there to run, or not Brogdon, the Derek White.
Yeah, from Boston.
When he took over the starting point guard job late in the season and in the playoffs, that's when Boston was at their best, and it fit both players well because at Marcus Smart at his best was leading the troop of the second guys and able to get his shot off, kind of run the thing and do what he wants, play.
Yeah. And shout out Derek White finally getting a haircut, man. His hairline was farther back than both of ours combined.
If mine ever looks like that, tell me to shave my head.
100%. Same, man. If it gets past my ears, just let's have an intervention where I shave my head.
So, well, I do want to make a quick comment as we start to wrap up this podcast. The trophy over your right shoulder.
I know. It's been a good year. It's been fun being the champ for a year, Drew. And I'll say this. The Mad Titans have laid a foundation for successful seasons going forward. We were counted out from the beginning. I heard snickers on draft night about how bad my team was. And all we did was...
I stand by it.
All we did was post the best regular season record in the league. And then we fizzled out on the back of freaking A.J. Brown.
You're the Dallas Cowboys.
He screws my Tennessee Titans, and I screwed the Mad Titans by not performing on Monday Night Football, like on the biggest stage. I needed 19 points from him. And, I mean, the guy's capable of it. And we just absolutely crapped the bed. And the worst part was, Drew, I had a 69% chance of winning that matchup until halftime of Monday Night Football. Well, and, during halftime, it switched. And I was like, oh, no.
I had that same thing. So about halfway through, and I don't know where this happened. This is an honest mistake. I just reset the league like I do every single year. And all the settings are the same. But somehow – we only have 1 week playoffs this year.
Yeah.
And I couldn't reset it. I don't know what the problem was, but I realized it about halfway through Sunday. And at that point, you for sure couldn't change it. Mm-mm. But I called Rusty and I was like, hey, so last year, was it just 1 week playoffs? I wasn't a part of the playoffs last year. And so I said, did I miss something last year? And he said, no, it was 2 week games in the playoffs. And so I don't know what happened. But at that time, I was like, well, I'm done. Because I'm playing Hunter, who is actually the best team in the league. And he just got all kinds of horses, and I'm down big, and Rusty, you're up big, so it's going to be like a rematch of last year. And then it flipped. And for me, it flipped because James Cook went nuclear. Mm-hmm. And then Joe Burrow's former OC at LSU, took over play calling and the offensive coordinator roles when they fired Ken Dorsey in Buffalo. Yeah. And he just decided he was going to run the ball down Dallas's throat.
And they did.
It worked great for me. It was a perfect matchup because I had James Cook and Hunter, who was projected to beat the tar out of me because my early game guys just didn't perform. Keenan Allen's hurt and was out the whole 9 yards. I thought I was toast. But I had James Cook, and Hunter had Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and the tight end Kincaid had the three-way Buffalo stack, and they did not throw the ball at all the whole game. And so Kincaid had a goose egg. I think Diggs had like 7 points, and Josh Allen had like 15 or something. Totally pedestrian for Josh Allen. And James Cook flipped it with like a 37-point game. And at that point, I needed 3 points going into Sunday night football. And I had McManus, the Jaguars kicker, going against the Ravens. Okay. Yeah. I needed 3 points. McManus missed 2 field goals in the first half, didn't kick any in the second half, and I left Sunday Night Football down by 4 points. and all I had to do was get 4 points from Tyler Lockett on Monday night. And you know how much he got me? 5. I mean, just razor thin margins. My wife, congratulations, Haley. She came down here a minute ago. If you saw me conversating to the side earlier, this is what she brought me. Look at that, Rusty. We got some pork chops, some mac and cheese, and some homemade sweet potatoes. I mean, I can't wait to. I got to brag on her.
You're killing me.
I got to brag on her for the food, and I've also got to brag on her because she made it into the finals of our family league by a half of a point. Took out the 1 seed.
Let's go.
Her brother-in-law from South Carolina, his name is Sean. He does not listen to this podcast because he is weird, obviously. Because there's 2 types of people in this world. People that love this podcast and weirdos.
100%.
He finished the regular season like 11-3. And 2 of the losses were to Haley, and then she beat him in the playoffs.
She got that number, baby.
Yeah, she just had his number. And so she's in the finals. She had an upset on the other side of the bracket where the top 2 seeds in that league clinched in like week 8. I mean, they were just dominant. And so it's a 3-4 seed in the finals. I'm like, honey, I think you got it. And so, but your boy is playing lump. A boy lump in the finals. It's a 1-week finals, all or nothing. I mean, this feels like an old school Aaron Burr versus Alexander Hamilton duel out back. Yeah. Each of you get 1 shot. Whoever lands it gets that trophy over Rusty's right shoulder next week.
That's it, man. You know, we don't talk about it much, but the Witten Family League, the Slumdunder Mifflinaires, are 12-2, and we're heading towards another championship in that league. It's one of the easier leagues that I'm in. Like, shout out to my family, I love them. But
play with foreigners, right? Like they think it's the other kind of football.
There's 9 teams in this league, man, and so I was able to draft Christian McCaffrey, Stephon Diggs, pretty early on in this draft. Like, I got CMC because my brother runs it with 2 quarterbacks in a quarterback-heavy league, so you want to get quarterbacks early. I was the last pick. I was the 9th pick of the first round and took Christian McCaffrey at position 1.9.
Like, you took McCaffrey Diggs at the turn?
Yeah, McCaffrey Diggs.
Wow.
Nobody else does that. Nobody else drafted CMC at position 9 except the Slumdunder Mifflinaires and the Witten Family League.
Yeah. Well, let me just brag on myself for a minute as well. Back to the League of Avengers. Your boy had the number 1 pick, and everybody's like, oh, you made it to the finals with the number 1 pick. My number 1 pick was Justin Jefferson, who broke his leg in like the 5th week, came back last week to limp after the first quarter, back to the locker room, never to come back, and then put up a fine week this week. With the number 1 pick in a 12-team league, your boy's in the finals.
Yeah.
And for one reason, Keenan Allen, my man Keenan Allen, who is now hurt.
It's death taxes, and Keenan Allen's going to get hurt at some point in a football season.
And if he does come back, he's got freaking Easton Stick throwing him the ball.
Yeah, on a team that should be dominating, 13-1.
You hope they rally behind the fact that their bonehead coach just got fired.
Much like Las Vegas has with Antonio
Pierce.
How that dude is not the head coach next year is like, if he's not the head coach next year, they all need to be gone because that dude
he's not going to be the head coach next year because old Bowl Cut never makes the right decision.
You're right about that. If he's smart, Antonio Pierce is the head coach of that team.
They fired the head coach and GM, which means there's only one person making that hire, and it's old bowl cut. Like,
straight out of the kids' picks.
You don't want a guy that purposefully has that haircut making any decisions, and he's making all of them right now.
All of them.
He may hire Antonio Pierce because Antonio Pierce can be like, "Hire me, bro."
He can walk in that office and say, "The job is mine," and he's gonna say,
Yeah. So I hope Antonio Pierce gets it. I love watching former players, especially defenders that have like personality. Like you remember their personalities when they were playing football. Yeah. Like it's not like a quarterback or you know, like you have the O'Connell guy from Minnesota, or you have Sean Payton, or you have all these former, you know, Frank Reich or Doug McDermott, or not Doug McDermott. What's the guy in Jacksonville?
Peterson. Doug Peterson.
Doug Peterson. You know, they all played quarterback, but they were just kind of fine. You know, to have a linebacker with personality, and like Vrabel and like Antonio Pierce, like those guys, like old boy at Houston, D'Amico Ryan. Like those guys are fun. Like you know that locker room is fun. They'll go to war for those guys. You know,
100%. Man,
the only reason why Ray Lewis is not a head coach, if we're all being honest, because he murdered somebody,
killed somebody, got away with it. They're afraid to do
him
it
and
again.
OJ.
Yeah. If the glove does not fit, you must acquit.
So, Rusty, that was a successful podcast. I think we're about done. You got my blood pressure up for no reason at all, despite us thinking we're going to have a fun podcast here and have enjoy one of our 7 wins this year.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. But you're not going to take me down though, because that trophy right there.
Yeah.
Trophy right there.
Well,
it's going to be sitting.
We're going to move that out frame. We're going to talk about how the Grizz are going to beat the Pacers tonight. We're back on our winning ways. We're that team that's now coming in your house. You come into our crib. You don't want to be there because we fist and beat you up, man. Like,
is a parade inside my city? Yeah.
Yeah, it's back, baby. Ja kept those receipts. He looks healthy. He looked good. He played a ton of minutes last night or Tuesday night and didn't look fatigued at all. And so Ja is back. His minutes are only going to get more. He's only going to get better. And if we can continue to get the same type production out of Jaren and Dez, watch out.
And your Ole Miss Rebels are 11-0, one of 3 teams in the country that are undefeated. It's the Revs, the Houston Cougars, and the James Madison Colonials, or what? I don't know what. Colonels,
Bulldogs.
maybe?
Bulldogs. I think they're Bulldogs.
Anyways, and the Ole Miss Rebels just continue to dominate the transfer portal. Walter Nolan's coming. He's just being a little. He's being a little hard to get.
The Dukes.
So Walter Nolan, come home, come play for the Ole Miss Rebels. We'd love to have you. Don't listen to all the outside noise. We got everybody else. Don't think you're better than us. Don't think you're better than everybody else. Everybody else wants to come play for Ole Miss. You're obviously missing something if you don't. I mean, even those Mississippi State fellas want to come play at Ole Miss. Cameron Richardson, your best corner.
Trash. No, trash.
Like for real, Pro Football Focus graded him out. He would have been our best cornerback last year.
That's sad. He was not good in pass defense. He made a ton of tackles, but he got cooked. Go watch the LSU game. He got cooked.
Yeah.
Cooked.
Oh, I'm not going to put much stock in that because those receivers and that quarterback, everybody's getting cooked.
Anyway. That's our episode for this week. Thanks for coming out to $2 Sports Podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcast, all platforms, YouTube. I want to start getting more active. We're going to start getting more active on Instagram again, getting our followers back involved. We're heading into a dead season. Be on the lookout for some polls and for some questions for us to kind of banter back and forth about. Follow us there at the $2 Sports Podcast. That's the number $2 Sports Podcast on Instagram, Twitter. We're on Facebook. Wherever you get your social medias, we're there. Come check us out. Interact with us. We love when our fans do. We love when y'all talk to us, tell us where we're wrong, where we're right. Shout out Cousin Kirk giving us posts on Twitter. Appreciate you, man, being a faithful listener. Drew, that's all I got for this week.
Rusty, I look forward to seeing you Saturday. Saturday. We're going to have lunch Saturday. We're going to have a good time. You're going to get your Christmas present. I've been excited about it.
You're going to get yours. I'm so excited about it.
You're going to hand me that trophy. But for right now, you're just going to play that music, and we'll see y'all again next week. A little early next week. We're going to record on Monday or Tuesday night because it is Christmas. We got family coming in. We got everything going on. We'll work it out to where we can record a little maybe Tuesday or Wednesday
night,
next week.
Tuesday night, Wednesday night. We'll figure it out. But be on the lookout for that. Turn your notifications on. Get our podcast, download, share with a friend who might want to listen to us. We'll see y'all next week.
See you guys.